Okay, good vach to all. We're in the new perek on Chaf Gimel Amid Beis. Chaf Gimel Amid Beis. So we know this of the parsha of Sotah that she's warned kina v'stira. Once there's kina v'stira, she can no longer live with her husband until she drinks. Okay, we know that kedushin, that marriage takes place in two stages: erisin and then the suin. So erisin, they're not living together yet. He was mekadesh, but they're not living together yet. And the suin. We also are familiar with the shemeres yavam. That's someone whose husband died and she has no children, and she's falling and waiting for either yibum or chalitza from her brother-in-law. Let's say her orus would say it's asa give kina v'stira to her. Let's say her yavam would go ahead and give a kina v'stira. Right? What's the halacha? What's the halacha? Says the Mishnah. Arusa v'shemeres yavam loy shaisais. They do not drink. Loy shaisais. They do not drink the meimarim. Loy noitlois ksuba. Nor do they get their ksuba. Right? Shenemar. The pasuk says, Asher tishta isha tachas isha. That she turns away from tachas isha, underneath what her husband. Prat la rusa v'shemeres yavam, who are not tachas isha, they're not underneath the husband. The arusa again is married but not fully yet because they didn't do nisuin, and the shemeres yavam, even though there's a zika that connects her to her yavam, nonetheless the yavama is not tachas isha, and therefore she would not go ahead and drink, and she would not get a ksuda. The Gemara is going to make a diak, fellas, but kina v'stira there would be. Kina v'stira there would be. Let's see Rashi, guys. Very, very, very. You say this to Rashi. Well, you know this ksuba. Shehi garma lesa atzmo alav. She loses a ksuba because she caused that she no longer has her. That he becomes asa to her. Achrei kinoi. Once you do kinoi, fellas, what's the halacha? You can't permit it to your husband till you drink the meimarim. And since this woman cannot drink the meimarim, she is never able to go ahead and marry her husband, nor can the yavama marry the yavam. You hear, guys? In other words, it's not pshat, she's out of the parsha completely. And if the husband, the orus, and the yavam does kinoi, and she goes ahead and is behind closed doors with this man, it's nothing. That's not pshat. But pshat is the kinoi is a kinoi. And as a result, she cannot live with her husband by the orus, and she can't live with her brother-in-law. Why? Because she can't drink because of the pasuk, because she's not tachas isha. As a result, the rule of thumb, who caused this issue? She did, because she went behind closed doors. Rashi tells us that what? That since she went behind closed doors, that he garma lesser atzma love. She caused herself to be usher on him. Shenistra acha kinoi. They became usher after kinoi. The mekina v'isa leyamayit. From kina v'stira, she's not out of the ballpark. She's out of the ballpark of drinking, but she's not out of the ballpark kina v'stira, kina v'farish b'gemara, as we'll see what in the Gemara. As we'll see in the Gemara. Now, Rashi says something. This is a little extra credit. Rashi says something. Rashi says something. Va'afilu leslon de Rav Hamnuna. The shemeres yavam shezinsa muteres liyavam. Guys, listen to this huge chiddush. We saw a Gemara. If you go back, Yud Ches Lamed Beis. Let's go Yud Ches Lamed Beis. This is the most. We're going to delve into things this evening. Yud Ches Lamed Beis. Gemara. Amar Rav Hamnuna. Shemeres yavam shezinsa. A shemeres yavam that was mizana. Asura liyavama. She's asa to yavama. She was with a man after her husband died, before yibum or chalitza was performed. Says Rav Hamnuna, she's asa to live with her husband. Memai midiktani shemeres yavam v'kenusa. Iyan b'shleima asira mishum hachi masna b'hada. Eliyam eloy asira hechi masna b'hada. V'tanya ze'aklal kol shilu mibtoboil. The Gemara slugs it up. The bottom line, Gemara slugs it up and says she's mutter to live with her husband. Now, guys, listen to this. Here's the chiddush. Had she been mizana without the kina v'stira, she would be able to live with a yavam. Now, I'm not talking about arusa. We're talking about shemeres yavam. So Ruvain dies, leaves a wife shpinsa. Shpinza has a mizana with somebody. Now Reuven's brother Shimon wants to do Yibum. You could do Yibum. That's the halacha. However, had Shimon gone ahead and warned Shpinza not to be behind closed doors with Yenim, with that guy, and she was, then the Rasa. You hear this? Says Rashi, guys, this is what Rashi says. Vafilu less lon the Rav Hamnuna, and even though we don't hold the Rav Hamnuna, the Shemeres Yavam Shez Zinsa, Muteres Liyavama, that a Shemeres Yavam, that was Mizaneh. Shpinza was Mizaneh, she would be permitted to Shimon. Nehida Muteres, Miu Loi Boy Leminsiv, Isha Zaina. This guy can say, listen, I don't want to marry an Isha Zaina. He have seen the Ksubasa. What would this woman do? I warned her not to be behind closed doors. She was behind closed doors. I don't want anything to do with this guy, with this woman. And therefore, she would be asa. It's a Peladik Chiddush, guys. It's a Peladik Chiddush. The Beis Halevi speaks out, Shalos Chuvas and Siman Mem. He speaks out that Kina V'Stiroi is a din hakpada of the Baal. In other words, had she been Mizana, she just Stamazoi had gone ahead and lived illicitly with somebody. The Baal hadn't warned her yet. Therefore, the halacha is not like Ramnuna. There was no Isser. She wasn't bound to everybody. Again, the only one who would hold her also would be Rabbi Akiva, because Shemeres Yavim is Chayvei Lavim. And Rabbi Akiva says Kedushin is not Toifis by Chayvei Lavim, right? Because he holds Chayvei Lavim is like Chayvei Koris and Chayvei Mrs. Bezdin. But we paskin that Kedushin is Toifis by Chayvei Lavim, and Chayvei Lavim, therefore, albeit an Aveira, is not going to go ahead and create a Chiyav Misa by her. Therefore, if Shminsa would be Mizaneh, she'd be permitted. That's provided Shimon doesn't know anything. Once Shimon knows something, meaning, and he's a little concerned, and he warns her, he shows he's makbid. Hakod of the Baal says the Beis Halevi can create an Issa. That's the whole Issa of not being able to live together. The whole Indian of Kina, which is a Chiddush. Again, remember, going back to the original source, using the concept of chazaka, unless we have edus that she did it, we should be maimed her on a chazaka that she's mutter. It's the chiddush of Sotah, once she was mekana, once he warned her, and she's behind closed doors, that she's usher. So that chiddush carries over to the shemeres yavam. Even though had she done something, it will be permitted. But this din of kina of hakpada with shaf and issa. That's the explanation of Rashi according to the Beis Halevi. There are people who are chaylik and Rashi, but I think it's a very nice way to start this parak with an insight that what Kina V'Stiri does. Don't think just because she's not Tachas Ishech, there's nothing to do over here. No, there is Kina, there is Stira, and this is the Gemara. The Gemara is going to get into that. Okay? So first in, Arusa v'Shemeres Yavam, Leishaisais, she doesn't drink. V'Leinoitlis Ksuba, and she doesn't get a Ksuba. After all, she, according to Rashi, caused the loss, because she shouldn't have been behind closed doors. Shpinza shouldn't have been behind closed doors with somebody else. Now, we all know this from, again, we've been through many Masechtas together in Nashim. Almanah Kohen Gadol is not permitted. Kohen Gadol has to marry a Basula. He has to marry, and even Almanah from Arusa would not be permitted from every sin. Gerusha v'chalutza l'kohen hedyet, gerusha midaraisa, chalutza midarbanon are not permitted to kohen hedyet. These are all cases of kiddushin. That kiddushin is, according to everyone except Rabbi Akiva, is chal. You would need a get. The kiddushin is kiddushin. Mamzeres loyavay mamzer b'kal Hashem unesina, from the givonim that David had been goyzer not to come into Kal Hashem. Bas Yisrael lemamzer ulenesin, or Bas Yisrael to a male mamzer, or to an asin, a male givoni. Loy shoisais, they don't drink. Loy shoisais, they don't drink. V'loy notlis ksuba, nor they to get the ksuba. Says Rashi, loy shoisais. Nemra parsha ela beruya lekaima. The parsha of Sotah is stated by a marriage that is sustainable. It's a marriage that's right to keep, guys. Even if Kedushin is Taifis, we're going to force them to give a get. We don't let them live together, correct? So even though they're married now, we're going to force them to give a get. So it's not a sustainable marriage. Once it's not a sustainable marriage, the parsha of Sotah does not apply. Right? We're speaking about one who's royal ishus, royal to be what? Married. Pratis would exclude Almanul Kohen Gadol. That's not in the ballpark. Almanul Kohen Gadol is not in the ballpark. V'loy noitlus ksuba b'afagav the shara almana. The Kohen Gadol loy konsura banon ksuba kedamin ksubis. We saw in ksubis that she does get her. Almanul Kohen Gadol would get ksuba. Zu ein la. Why? The stirasa garma loy leselav. Stira would cause it to be lost. Guys, Almana, we saw him after ksubis. If Almana marries a Gerush, Kohen Gadol, and he divorces her, she gets a ksuba. Over here, however, since he was over on the king of Vestira, again, the same yisoid as we saw by Shemeres Yavam. Once you go ahead and say that you're not going to beat her, you warn her, it's all over, and she loses a ksuba. She was goyim that. Says the Gemara Vaita, the Mishnah, second line down. And this is the one that what Leishaisis doesn't drink. Ksuba. If she would say Tameani. Now, she doesn't get a ksuba. She admits she was tamei. Again, this is after kina b'stiroi. She says she was tamei. She, in fact, means she had an illicit affair, and therefore, what she is tamei. Ushabola edim she tamei. Or of edim come and said that she had been mizaneh. V'aimeres ain't a shaisa. Or she says, I don't want to drink. Guys, this is before mechikas of the Megillah. Correct? Remember, this is before the Megillah was erased. Once the Megillah was erased, she's not to believe to say ain't a shaisa. She's believed to say Tmeyani, she's not believed to say Nishaisa. I'm just chasving over some things we saw earlier in the Masechta. Omar Baila says the Baal, Eini Mashke, I'm not giving her to drink. Ushabol Baila Baala Bederech, or they're going from their hometown to the Sanhedrin in Yerushalayim, and the Baal is with her. Noilus Ksubasa, she would get a Ksuba Leishaisais. Why? It's Leishaisais because he's not Nixim Yavain. The Baal doesn't want her to drink. So once he doesn't want to drink, she says, I'm willing to drink. You're causing me not to drink. I don't lose my ksuba. Again, very rule of thumb. Who caused the action over here? Was it her or him? If it's her, she loses a ksuba. If it's him, she doesn't. She had kina, stira, she's willing to drink, right? You say you don't want me to drink. Guess what? I won't. I can't live with you because the Torah says once there's kini v'stira, I can't live with you anymore. But please pay up your ksuba. Now, mesul ba'aleim, there's kini v'stira, and in all these cases, let's say the baal dies, before she drinks. Now she can't drink anymore. There's no purpose of her drinking. Correct? The guy's dead. There's the whole purpose of drinking is what? Kamata to a husband. There is no husband, guys. Again, the purpose of drinking is not like you think to whether she did or she didn't. The purpose of drinking is mattering to her husband. If she did, she's dead. But again, it's not. In other words, if her husband's dead, we don't say, okay, we're curious to what happened, right? For curiosity, you don't go ahead and make a drink. I say, yeah, once he's dead, you're not making a drink. She could have been tamei mamish behema gasa, but it doesn't make a difference. Right? Once he's dead, you're not going to go ahead and make a drink. So Beis Shammai says, noitlus ksuba, says Beis Shammai she's going to get a ksuba. Says Beis Shammai she's going to get a ksuba. We're going to see in the Gemara that shtar sha'omid ligvois is kigavli dami. Beis Shammai is of the opinion a shtar that is there to be what? Collected, is considered collected already, and therefore she will get a ksuba. And since she can't drink, she doesn't get a ksuba because he's dead. Okay, now a person is not supposed to marry a woman who's pregnant or nursing, because we said that what if she gets pregnant again, it may stir the milk, right? The milk may go bad, right? The milk may go bad. So the Chacham said you can't go ahead and marry. Chacham said you can't go ahead and marry. So mu'beres chavei, right? The Chacham goes that that's also to marry. Umenikas chavei, right? Or a woman is nursing. Like shoyses v'noilis ksuba. They don't drink. And they don't get the ksuba. Why? Because Reb Meir is of the opinion you're chayiv to go ahead and divorce her. So therefore, it's not a sustainable marriage, guys. This is the same as almana and l'kohen gadol and gerusha v'chulus l'kohen hedyet. It's not a sustainable marriage. You have to divorce her. You're over in divrei chachamim. You're not going to drink. The chachamim yachalhu la'afrisha. He's able to go ahead and divorce her. Ulachzir and take her back la'achazman. And therefore, what she would drink. Therefore, she would drink. Okay. Islandess, we're familiar with islandess from Masechta Yevamis. An islandess she's like an ayol. She's like a ram. She's a woman that doesn't have dodim. She doesn't have breasts, and she speaks as a thick voice like a man. She doesn't have simone ishus, and she can't have children. Who's the kana who can't have children? Ushena roya lele, a woman who drank some type of potion that took away her fertility. She can't drink. Like nightless ksuba shaislis. If what, since she can't be kind peer review with this woman, she doesn't get a ksuba and she doesn't drink. Rabbi Eliezer Ayman, no. Rabbi Eliezer says the following: Shiyachalu lisa isha cheres v'lifais libas himeno. The man can again those days marry a second wife to be kind peer review. Therefore, it's a sustainable marriage. We shall call an ashim. So this case will be mutter for her. So therefore, either oishaisais like most women, in other words, this is a sustainable marriage. Bisman azeh, when you can't marry two women and you want to kind peer review, you'd have to divorce your wife. But in those days where you could, so what are you saying? Marriage is not sustainable because you're mitzvah peer review? Says Rabbi Eliezer, you're not. This is a sustainable marriage. You can keep her and be kind peer review with somebody else. Says the Gemara Mishnah Vaita, Eishes Koyin Shaisa, when we tears the Bible, there's a parsha of Sotah by a Koyin. Eishes Koyin, there's a parsha of Sotah by. Eishes Saris, he got married, he was a healthy person. Now we know, fellas, that you're not supposed to marry a Suadaka Krushavcha. So this person, he lost his genitalia, and he's not. This is after marriage. Then Shaisa, she would go ahead and she would drink. Again, the Gemara will explain the chiddush in the case. The Gemara will explain the case. Again, we're learning the whole perik in one Mishnah, guys. So this is a case of one log Mishnah that is broken up into Mishnayos of 4 Mishnayos. This is all one Mishnah here, and we'll explain all these cases. Okay. Al Yedei Kol Aroyas Mekanin, a person, the Baal, can go ahead and give kinoi for all Aroyas. In other words, you can say, I'm giving you kinoi that you shouldn't be behind closed doors with your father. You shouldn't be behind closed doors with your brother. You shouldn't be behind closed doors with your son. These are all Aroyas. This would be kinoi v'stira. You hear this? This would be kinoi, and if they're behind closed doors, that would be stira. So it says the Mishnah, Al Yedei Kol Aroyas Mekanin, right? Chutz min hakotin. If it's a cotton, it says v'shachav ish isa. It's got to be an ish, it's someone that's right for bia as opposed to a cotton. When we misha ish, or someone, for example, is an animal, you can't give kinoi for an animal. The elu she bezdin nikanan lehen. There are those that bezdin will give kinoi. This person's incapable, but if bezdin sees this woman is acting in a certain manner, they're able to go ahead and warn. Mishen is charesh baila, that the husband became a cheresh, he can't hear or speak. Or he lost his mental capacity. Or if he was totally normal, but he was incapacitated because he was incarcerated. Then amru, not that they can make you drink. In other words, this is a kinoi that would accomplish that she'd lose the ksuba. It's not a kinoi that they would lead to that lead to drinking, because it wasn't the husband that actually did it. But their kinoi could go ahead and be a very, very good warning to her. Guess what? If you're going to act out in this situation, you're going to lose your ksuba. So therefore, that's what Bezdin can do. Rabbi Yossi is of the opinion, you even go ahead and cause the drink. Or when he gets healthy, then yashkena. If he gets healthy, he gets his hearing back, or he gets his mental capacity back, you'll be able to. Okay, very, very, very long Mishnah, very, very involved. Let's focus on the first din. Okay, so I introduce you to this din. An arusa shemeres yavam, the husband, the orus, but again, not a full-fledged husband. I mean, because they didn't live together yet, so he's a full-fledged husband. She's not a full-fledged wife. Of course, she's not hachasi sheikh. And a shemeres yavam. So the yavam warns her. So the halacha is that she doesn't drink and she doesn't get the ksuba. Now, why doesn't she drink? Because it's a pasuk. It's not tachasi sheikh. Now, why doesn't she get a ksuba? Is because kinoi v'stira works. Because in other words, there is such a concept of going ahead and warning her. Says the Gemara, Mishtahu d'lei shas. She doesn't drink. Kinoi maknala. Right? Minani mili. How do you know? How do you know that this that kinoi is in this parsha? How do you know this kinoi in this parsha? Minani mili. The Tana Rabbanan. It says Dabel b'nei Yisrael v'amarta. Now the word v'amarta is extra. Dabel b'nei Yisrael v'amarta eleihem ish kisista ishtoi umol b'mol. That's the opening pasuk in the parsha of Sotah. So now The word v'amarta is extra. You said Darbel b'nei Yisrael and say ish. What's v'amarta aleim? What does that mean? So l'rabbis, this amarta to speak to who? L'rabbis arusa v'shemeres yavam. It comes to include arusa v'shemeres yavam, that they're in the parsha of kisishte. They're in the parsha of what? Of turning aside, and the parsha of kinoi. Now, clearly in our Mishnah, fellas, both we're linking arusa and shemeres yavam together. We're going to see a machlokus between Rabbi Yoshia and Rabbi Yonasan, the bar pluktis in Shas. These are Tanoim, and the Mishnah is only going to come out according to Rabbi Yonasan, not according to Rabbi Yeshaya. Says the Gemara, Umaslisa Mani, who's the Tana of our Mishnah, is Rabbi Yonasan. The Tanya, the pasuk says, Im loy satis tuma tachasi sheikh. She didn't turn away, she'll be clean. And the words tachasi sheikh me'amorim. Prat la arusa. Arusa is not considered tachasi sheikh. So in other words, the arusa does not drink. Yochel shani moitzi af shemeres yavam. I might think the shemeres yavam also doesn't drink, and in fact, our Mishnah said she doesn't. Again, I might think the shemeres yavam also doesn't drink, and in fact, our Mishnah says she doesn't. It says Talmud Loimar. It says ish is kishista ishtoi. What's the double lashon ish? L'rabbi shemeres yavam sheshaisa. It comes to include that shemeres yavam does drink. So obviously, guys, Rabbi Yoshia. These are the words of Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yoshia therefore cannot be the Tana of our Mishnah, because our Mishnah says two people don't drink, arusa and shemeres yavam. According to Rabbi Yoshia, shemeres yavam would drink. Ish includes shemeres yavam. In other words, the zika of the marriage is enough to make her tachas ishech, right? That's ish. You have a pasuk. So therefore, he is out. Rabbi Yonasan Amar. Rabbi Yonasan is of the opinion tachas ishech prat l'shemeres yavam. Tachas ishech excludes shemeres yavam. In other words, shemeres yavam is less of a wife than an arusa. According to Rabbi Yoshia, fellas, an arusa is less of a wife. Shemeres yavam is more of a wife. According to Rabbi Yoshia, arusa is not drinking. Shemeres yavam is drinking. According to Rabbi Yonasan, it's the opposite. Arusa is more of a wife, and therefore the pasuk is going to exclude you. Right? Aitzi says the more. Rabbi Yonasan says, right? Prat l'shemeres yavam. Aitzi shemeres yavam b'lei aitzi es arusa. Talmud Loimar asher tishta isha tachas isha prat la'arusa. I might think you only take out shemeres yavam and not arusa, because arusa is more of a wife. Kamash malon tachas isha. You take out what? Arusa as well. So who's taking out both? Rabbi Yonasan. Who's the Tana of our Mishnah? Rabbi Yonasan. Good. That's it. That's the Gemara. Again, one more time. According to Rabbi Yoshia, shemeres yavam doesn't drink. Well, does drink. According, and why? Because it says ish. According to Rabbi Yoshia, arusa doesn't drink. According to Rabbi Yonasan, they both don't drink. Right? They both don't drink. Why? Shemeres yavam doesn't drink because she's out of the ballpark. Period. She's not married. And tachas isha, even though arusa is married, she's not tachas isha. Says the Gemara. Ashetishta isha tachas isha prala arusa. Now, says Rabbi Yonasan, according to Rabbi Yonasan, alimalei, who's considered more of a wife, guys? Arusa. Why? Why isn't arusa more of a wife? Right? She's more of a wife because the kiddushay didei. He was mekadesh her. What about a yavama? Min hashamayim was mekadesh her, right? Min hashamayim, they said is yibum. That might ring a bell from Yavamis, right? When Shemayim gave her a wife, right? It's such a lashon. The cycling al yadai, she gets skila. The arusa, guys, if she is mizana, naira marasa gets skila if she's between 12 and 12 and a half. So who did that? The kedushin of the husband, and therefore she's more of a wife. Therefore, what? He was memayit shemeres yavam more. In other words, when Rabbi Yonasan used the pasuk to take shemeres yavam out, it must be that who's more roy to be in? It must be what? It must be arusa, and therefore he might say arusa from another pasuk, but she's more in the ballpark. Umar and Rabbi Yoshia alimale shemeres yavam. Shemeres yavam is more of a wife. Why is shemeres yavam more of a wife than an arusa? The loy mechasra mesira l'chuppah. Right? She's not mechusa. In other words, usually you need two steps, guys. You need kiddushin and the suin. She doesn't need the suin. All she needs is, you don't need chuppah. She boil her and that's it. Rabbi Yonasan. Now, what does Rabbi Yonasan do with the pasuk of Rabbi Yoshia? Rabbi Yonasan, high ish that Rabbi Yoshia uses to go ahead and include a shemeres yavam. What does it come to include? Ish is a riboy. My overlay. What does it come to include? Mi boyle l'rabos eishes cheresh ve'eishes shaita ve'eishes amibeis ve'eishes sha'amim. These people, the wife of a cheresh, the wife of a shaita, the wife of a guy who's deranged, right? These are all included ish to include that, but not to include a shemeres yavam. Now, Rabbi Yonasan, he used what? The word tachas isha to exclude arusa. Rabbi Yoshia, hi tachas isha, that Rabbi Yonasan exclude arusa, she doesn't drink my overlay. What does he use it for? Since he said arusa is out of the ballpark anyway, he used it tachas ishech, right? So he used tachas ishech. There's two pasuk, guys. There's tachas isha and tachas ishech. So tachas ishech is at the beginning of the parsha. If you look at Rashi, guys, Rashi's beautifully. Rashi says, don't make a mistake. Basra ha'oma b'soif ha'parsha, soif taras hakanois. Rashi's telling you, don't get caught in the trap. He used it already, right? It's a different one. There's tachas ishech and tachas isha. So what does he do with the tachas isha at the end of the parsha? My overlay, he uses it to make a hekesh. We're going to make a hekesh, guys. A suma can't make his wife drink. So if the isha is a suma, then what? Then she can't drink. If a woman can't stand because she's crippled, then the husband make a hekesh to the husband. If he's a cripple, can't make a drink. We're going to see this on Daf Chazayin at the end. So that's what we learned from this. Now, the whole reason that arusa is out of the ballpark, guys, is because of a pasuk. Let's say it didn't say any pasuk. If I woke you up in the middle of the night and say a guy gives an isha kedushin, he then goes ahead and says al tistri mishpoini, and she does it. You'd say she gets what? She drinks the Sotah water, right? And the answer is she doesn't, because the pasuk tells us she doesn't. It's not tachas isha, it's right. It's not tachas tashach sheikh. It's not tachas your husband. Good. So why did you need a pasuk to tell me that? Fred Gemara Kasha Elataima, the reason why the arusa doesn't drink. Dichsivi hani kroi, because it says these psukim tachas isha ishish. It says halav haki have amin arusa shasya. 1 second. How's that possible? But Kiyasar Rav Acha Bar Chanina Midraima, when Rav Acha Bar Chanina came up from the south, the pasuk says, fellas, Vi'at kishotas tachas isheich, and you turned away tachas isheich, v'chinim and you were mizaneh, v'yitain ishbach es shechvavta, you were with another man, mi bala day isheich, you with another man aside from your husband. Now let's put the pasuk in English words. You are with another man aside from the husband who you have been with before. In other words, your tachas, meaning you were with another man aside from your husband. Mashma, you were with your husband once upon a time. Guys, an aris, they were never living together. The Gemara, great kasha. Why would you think that you need a pasuk to get arusa out of the ballpark? Arusa is out of the ballpark because it has to be a woman, a man that she had lived with, had relations with previously. Because it says, Mi baladei ishech. Fred the Gemara Kasha, Mi baladei ishech, Mishekodma shchivas baal lebayal. The shchiva, the relation of the husband had to be before the boil. V'lo shekodma shchivas boil lebal. So guys, let's fear ice. A man gives a woman kedushin, gives kesef kedushin, or gives her a shtar kedushin. And then he's Reuven, and he says, Shpinsa, if you're going to be with Shimon, then she goes behind closed door with Shimon. And she did the act. We have a pasuk that says, since they were never married, because Reuven never was Shpinsa was never tachas isheich, right? So they don't drink. Fred the Gemara, even without that pasuk, you don't need the pasuk, because the pasuk says, you are with another man aside for your husband. But she never was with her husband. She never was with Reuven. So why do I need the pasuk of tachas ishech? It's not baladei ishech. As I read the Gemara. Amar Rami bar Chama, mishkachas lo kegain, shebo lo aris beisavia. Reuven was with her. When Shpinsa, the 12 months, was living with her father's house, getting her trousseau together, Reuven went ahead and lived with her. Okay? So now, very good. So since Reuven had lived with her, Mila mibaladech isheich wouldn't do the job to stop him from drinking. Therefore, I need tachas isheich to step pasuk. Okay, now, if that's the case of tachas isheich by the Orus, it's speaking they were together. It has to be speaking with the Shemeres Yavam was also together. In other words, you want to go ahead and have, again, Tachasi Sheikh also would apply to the Shemeres Yavam. So it must be that the Yavam was with the Yavama again. The parallel case by the Shemeres Yavam, Kigoin, Shebola Yavam, the Beis Chamia, that while she is in her father-in-law's house, again, it's a father-in-law because she was married to Ruvain, and now she lived with Shimon. I guess they used to live together with the fathers, not like now, but they lived together in that house, right? And now, so she was with. So therefore, her Shemeres Yavam, Karisle, why are you calling her Shemeres Yavam? Ishtoi me'al Yisahi. First mission in Kedushin, guys, right? Isha niknat b'sleisha derachim, right? And how is a Yavama nikna? B'biyah. So if it's with her when she was, right, she's not a Shemeres Yavam. You tell me she's a Shemeres Yavam and doesn't drink? She's a full-fledged Isha. It's his wife. That's right. Good. Says the Gemara, the Amar Rav, koine lakol. If a Yavam is with a woman, right, but Beis Chamia, she's a full-fledged wife. So the Gemara says it must be Kishmuel. It must be like Shmuel, the Amar, like Kone el Devarim Hamur B'Parsha. Okay, now we're going to see Rashi in a second, but we know that the dead brother bequeaths to his brother that marries his wife his estate. In addition, we also know that if you give Maimer, if you do Kiddushin to Yavama, in addition to Chalitza, you will need a get. Says Rashi, Kishmuel, Hadasi Kra Lemuute, that we need the pasuk of Hachas Ishech to exclude Shemeres Yavam is Kishmuel. It's like Shmuel that says it's not a full-fledged wife. The Amar Lekana Ela Devarim Amurim Beparsha. He acquires her if Beis Chamia, again, it's a Beis Chamia, then it acquires only, right, which is what? Lakum al Shem Achiv ben Achlasai, that he would get his brother's estate, will the Paitra beget, and now the need to pater with a get, Chalitza is not going to do the job. The Kani le Yavam Bebia Koldahu, Mi Yavama Yavay Aleha, Nafkala. The like Siv Yavama, Yikachenalai Leisha. That says El Yavama Yavay Aleha, but Lakalai Leisha. Bashminan, the Biasa Aleha, Hein Lekuchanishus, that the Bia is Lekuchanishus, Shaloi, Ilka. Lemidi Mabach Parsha Rabinu Kra. Nisu and that's Halalu, but Lemidi Achrina Lab Nisu Uma Omer Parsha, Pata Bechalitza Ideyibum, Biakam Hashem Achiv, Sheyarish is Nichsei Achiv, Vein Achiv Chalkin Imai. So in other words, the other brothers are not going to divide. So according to if he marries her, according to Rav, it's everything, and according to Shmuel, then what? You're not a full-fledged wife. So guys, let's theorize now. Let's go outside. Look at me. We have 4 opinions over here. We have 2 Tanoim and we have 2 Amoraim. We have Rabbi Yoshia Tana and Rabbi Yonasan Tana. Rabbi Yoshia is of the opinion that a Shemeres Yavam, in fact, would drink. Rabbi Yonasan is of the opinion Shemeres Yavam wouldn't drink. Pashtus, according to Rav, if the Shemeres Yavam, the Yavam Shimon had Bia with what? With Shpinza, it's a full-fledged wife. So Pashtus Rav now would hold like Rabbi Yoshia. And Rabbi Shmuel says you're not a full-fledged wife, only concerning the parsha, with say Le'inyan being a Sotah, you wouldn't drink. So he holds like Rabbi Yonasan. Now we all know by now that Amoraim want to come out L'kulei Alma. They don't want to come out a Machloikis Tanoim. So the Gemara suggests the following. If that's so, that Rav says you kind of everything, and Shmuel says only what it says in the parsha. Lema Rav Dama Rabbi Yoshia, Shmuel Dama Rabbi Yonasan, which again neither Rav or Shmuel wants. So the Gemara answers up. Amalach Rav. Another army I feel Rabbi Yonasan. I can even hold like Rabbi Yonasan. I who say that she's an Isha can hold like Rabbi Yonasan that a Shemeres Yavam wouldn't drink. Why? When you need a pasuk of Tachas Ishech to take her out of the ballpark, why would you need a pasuk to take her out if she wasn't in? Unless she must be in the parsha that you need a pasuk to take her out. And conversely, Shmuel goes the opposite direction. Shmuel Damar, Shmuel says, "Another army I feel Rabbi Yoshia." When you need the ish to include in the parsha, mashma that what she's not a full-fledged wife, and therefore you need a pasuk to make a full-fledged wife. The Indian drinking. Okay, Bez Hashem tomorrow morning. We'll see you then.